Hi, my name is Christa Cook with Solidarity Engineering, and today I'll be discussing the equitable distribution of humanitarian resources in a refugee camp in Matamoros, Mexico, using ArcGIS. In recent years, we've seen an influx of migrants from Central and South America coming to the United States for a variety of reasons. The population I most work with are asylum seekers who are not necessarily looking for a better economic opportunity. Rather, they're seeking refuge because they feel their lives have been threatened in their home countries. People often make this 2,000-kilometer journey on foot, hitchhiking, or by bus. And when people do arrive to the border, they're often in need of basic humanitarian assistance. In 2019, a refugee camp started forming on the Mexican side of the Mexican-American border due to the Migrant Protection Protocols, also known as the Remain in Mexico policy. This policy required asylum seekers to wait for their day in court on the Mexican rather than the American side of the border. This created a problem for thousands of families because they simply had no place to stay during that time period, so they started forming camps. At its peak, the camp in Matamoros, Mexico had about 3,500 people. Sitting on the banks of the Rio Grande, the camp is about 7 acres in size, and most of the population come from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, although there's also people from other places. Most of the humanitarian aid was provided via NGOs, as there was very little government assistance. Two of the NGOs that were involved on this particular project were Solidarity Engineering and Global Response Management. Hurricane Hanna hit the camp in July of 2020, causing hundreds of families to lose access to their shelters. The severity of the flood can be seen in the photo on the right of the field hospital being completely flooded out and unusable, and the photo on the left of two homes that had to be abandoned due to the rising floodwaters. The floodwaters also became a breeding ground for mosquitoes and rats. Rats in particular became a problem as they started eating through the bottoms of the remaining tents to get to the food inside. This hurricane happened during the COVID-19 pandemic when a need for social distancing was particularly high. A hurricane in a refugee camp during a global pandemic created a significant public health crisis that could be solved with tents. However, the distribution of tents was going to be a challenge due to the severity of the need and the unexpected nature of this event. Previously, country representatives that we called country leaders would put together lists outlining the resources needed by each individual family from their respective countries. However, this method of distribution was highly confusing because it produced multiple lists that was difficult to fulfill. This also led to high social tensions due to the perceived favoritism that created unequal access. And additionally, this created a very slow response time to actually distribute. After the hurricane, the need to rapidly and efficiently distribute shelter resources became a priority. With Survey 123, we were able to quickly identify how many tents were needed, who needed them, and prioritize the recipients. Survey 123 was chosen because it creates an electronic and unbiased process flow that ultimately lowers the response distribution time. With this survey, we were able to distribute tents, platforms, and tarps. The surveys were accessed via QR codes that were posted throughout various locations within the camp. The surveys asked for basic contact information, a photo of the broken tent if available, and family demographic information. Single parents, pregnant women, families with infants, and families with a disabled member were prioritized. Asylum seekers accessed the survey via their own smartphone. However, if they didn't have access to a smartphone or couldn't read, they could go to their country leader in order to get help filling out the survey. The surveys were done in Spanish, although not everybody in the camp spoke Spanish. Although the survey is not particularly sophisticated, we did have to go through multiple iterations in order to find something that could overcome a few unforeseen challenges. The first challenge being we needed something that was able to have a multilingual functionality because most of the people in the camp spoke Spanish. However, the NGOs who were doing the distribution mostly spoke English, so we needed something that was able to have a Spanish input yet an English output. Additionally, when working with vulnerable populations like asylum seekers, you're often met with resistance when it comes to distributing personal information such as phone numbers and full names. So there were some people who were unwilling to put that information on this online platform. As mentioned before, there is a level of illiteracy within the camp and a lack of internet, and those two things combined made access to the survey more of a challenge. We were able to overcome most of these challenges by partnering with the country leaders themselves. The country leaders helped us overcome the lack of internet and the literacy by helping people fill out their surveys, but also promoted this Survey 123 idea in general, which helped give people more confidence and trust in this idea. And it was very easy on Survey 123 to write a survey that was published in Spanish, but was easily read in English as well. Once the surveys were completed, a dispatcher would organize the requested resources by country. The dispatcher was able to keep track of received and fulfilled requests via ArcGIS Online under the Data tab. This process significantly shortened the queues for asylum seekers who were looking for tents. After the dispatchers organized the requests by country, the country leader would then come pick up the resources and deliver them to the respective asylum seeker. With this process, we were able to distribute 198 tents over 600 platforms and countless tarps. We then put all that information in a dashboard that was shared with all the various NGOs who were a part of this project. This significantly eased tensions among NGOs because now we were all on the same page and everyone had the same information. Using Survey 123 to distribute humanitarian aid in an emergency setting streamlined the process significantly. It solved the language barrier, it created equitable access to shelters by reducing perceived favoritism, it eased social tensions as it was seen as unbiased. It improved communication among stakeholders, which in turn improved response time. You can see the photo on the right that this family requested for all three items from the survey: the tent, the platform, and the tarp. These items combined help promote positive public health outcomes by reducing contact time with mosquitoes and rats, reducing the amount of standing water around a living space, and it reduces the spread of COVID-19 by giving people individual spaces. Most importantly, it provides a semblance of dignified home to our asylum seeker friends. Other applications of ArcGIS within the refugee camp in Matamoros, Mexico are story maps, collector, ArcGIS Pro, and dashboards. After the success of the tent distribution project, we realized what a powerful communication tool Survey 123 can be. So we started implementing it in other projects as well. We started using it to record the daily chlorine levels of the water treatment system we have on site. We also used it to get the community's input on the water, sanitation, and hygiene, or WASH, access within the camp. In order to document the ever-changing conditions of the camp, we started making quarterly maps. The maps were made with drone imagery that was processed on Drone to Map, overlaid with data that was collected on Collector, processed on ArcGIS Pro, and displayed on dashboards. This dashboard in particular was later used to perform spatial analysis to help us make better decisions on where to do new infrastructure projects. We've also used a similar process to create security maps and maps for possible new clinic sites. Story maps have become our primary communication tool to talk about the work we do here in Matamoros. We use them to present at universities, to write new proposals, and to say thank you to our donors. After 2 years of operation, the Matamoros refugee camp has closed in February of 2021 due to a policy change. You can see on the photo on the right that there is no longer any infrastructure and that the land is being restored to a park as it was once before it was a camp. However, there are camps forming in other parts of Mexico along the border, such as Reynosa and Tijuana, and lessons learned from implementing ArcGIS in the Matamoros refugee camp will be implemented in other camps as well. Once again, my name is Christa Cook with Solidarity Engineering. Please feel free to reach out at Christa@solidarityengineering.org with any questions or comments. If you're interested in seeing a story map that outlines all the ArcGIS work done in the Matamoros refugee camp, go ahead and scan that QR code below. Thank you so much for watching my presentation.